The warning came too late. By the time the signal reached the outer monitoring stations of Earth, 3 colony worlds had already gone silent. No distress calls, no final messages. Just complete silence. Commander Alan Porter stared at the display screen, his face lit by its blue glow. He was the first human to see what happened to Proxima Colony. The recording showed normal activity, then a strange light in the sky, followed by crystalline ships descending like falling stars. Within minutes, the entire settlement was gone, not destroyed but somehow consumed. Where buildings once stood, only bare earth remained. "Play it again," he said to the young officer beside him. Lieutenant Frank Miller nodded and tapped the controls. "Sir, this is the 5th time." "I know." Alan rubbed his tired eyes. "But maybe we missed something." They hadn't missed anything. The Zorashi had arrived, and humanity had just become their next meal. In the 6 months since that recording, panic had spread across Earth and its colonies. The government tried to keep the information secret at first, but rumors spread quickly. Soon everyone knew about the aliens who burned worlds. Some people called them the Burn. Susan Kelly woke up to the sound of sirens again, the 3rd drill this week. She pulled herself out of bed and looked out her apartment window at the pre-dawn streets of Chicago. People hurried to the underground shelters, carrying only what they could fit in regulation bags. Emergency drills had become part of daily life now. "Another test," her neighbor called from the hallway. "Better get moving." Susan grabbed her bag and joined the crowd. Nobody complained anymore. Everyone had seen the footage that had leaked online, worlds turning to dust as strange ships hovered above them. 14 alien civilizations confirmed dead. Now the Zorashi were headed toward Earth. At the North American Space Defense Command, Admiral Paul West stood before the gathered military leaders of Earth. Representatives from China, Russia, the European Union, and the African Alliance sat around the large table, their faces grim. "The burn will reach our outer defenses in approximately 6 weeks, Admiral West said, pointing to the holographic display. Red dots showed the approaching Zorashi fleet, hundreds of ships moving as one. "Our combined forces number 312 vessels. Intelligence suggests we're outnumbered at least 4 to 1. And their technology?" asked General Lin from the Chinese Space Force. "Superior in every way we've been able to measure," Admiral West admitted. "But we have something they don't expect." He nodded to a woman sitting quietly at the end of the table. Dr. Karen Bell stood up, her lab coat wrinkled from too many hours, in the research facility beneath Olympus Mons on Mars. "3 years ago we discovered something under the Martian surface," she said, bringing up images of an excavation site. "A technology vault from a civilization that appears to have faced the Zorashi before. We've managed to adapt some of their technology to one of our ships." The room filled with whispers and skeptical looks. "One ship?" General Petrov from Russia asked. "What can one ship do against hundreds?" Dr. Bell smiled slightly. "That depends on the ship, General. Deep within the asteroid belt, hidden in the shadow of Ceres, that ship was taking form. Engineer." Samantha Wright floated through the hangar in her work suit, supervising the final installation of the experimental drive. The vessel didn't look impressive from the outside, a standard military cruiser design, chosen to avoid drawing attention. But inside it was unlike anything humanity had ever built. "How's it coming along?" Captain Daniel Hayes asked, pushing himself through the zero-gravity environment to float beside her. "We'll be ready for the test firing in 6 hours," Samantha replied, checking her tablet. "If it works the way the Martian schematics suggest, we'll have something the Zorashi have never seen before." Daniel looked at the ship thoughtfully. "You really think this can save Earth?" "No," Samantha said honestly. "Nothing can save Earth now. But this ship might save what matters most, who we are, our story, our memory." That night, while most of humanity slept uneasily in their beds or gathered in prayer circles or drank to forget, 58 volunteers boarded the experimental vessel. They had all been chosen carefully. The best minds, the strongest bodies, people who represented the diverse cultures and knowledge of Earth. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge looking at his small crew. I won't lie to you. This mission is likely one way. Even if the Lazarus drive works as expected, we don't know if we'll survive using it. But if we succeed, we may find a weakness the fleet can exploit. First Officer Mary Johnson spoke up. Every simulation shows Earth's defenses falling within days. This is humanity's best chance. Then let's make it count, Daniel said. He turned to the communication station. Officer Ray Clark, send the activation code to command. We're launching ahead of schedule. The experimental ship, christened USS Firebird, detached from the hidden dock and moved silently through the asteroid field. Its conventional engines glowed softly, indistinguishable from mining vessels to any watching eyes. As they cleared the belt, Samantha called from engineering. Drive systems online, Captain. Ready when you are. Daniel took a deep breath. Activate the Lazarus drive. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship shuddered. Stars outside the viewport seemed to stretch and twist. A soft hum built throughout. The vessel, vibrating through the deck plates. Sir, the sensor officer called. We're detecting Zarashi scouts at the edge of the system. They've found us. Daniel gripped his chair arms. Ms. Wright, we need that drive now. In engineering, Samantha worked frantically, adjusting power flows to the alien technology. Almost there. Almost. The view screens showed crystalline ships accelerating toward them, weapons charging. They had minutes, maybe seconds. Now, Samantha shouted. Reality itself seemed to fold around the Firebird. The stars outside didn't. Just streak as in normal, faster-than-light travel, they rippled like reflections in disturbed water. The Zarashi ships fired, but their energy beams passed through empty space. The USS Firebird, humanity's last hope, vanished not just from Earth's solar system, but from that layer of reality entirely. As the ship plunged into what Samantha would later call the probability sea, the crew experienced something no human had ever felt before. The sensation of existing in multiple possibilities at once. They had escaped. But the real journey had just begun. The probability sea was nothing like normal space. Outside the Firebird's viewports, reality itself seemed fluid. Colors that had no names flowed past the ship. Sometimes the crew saw shadows of worlds that might have existed or might yet exist. Status. Report, Captain Hayes ordered, gripping his chair as the ship shuddered. Officer Ray Clark checked his screens. All systems functioning, but I'm not sure where we are, sir, or when we are. In engineering, Samantha Wright worked to understand the alien drive. The Martian data had explained how to activate it, but not much else. Each time the drive pulsed, she felt like her mind was being pulled in multiple directions. I think we're moving between possible realities, she said over the ship's comm. The Zarashi destroy possibilities. This ship lets us sail through them. For 3 days by the ship's clock, the Firebird traveled through the strange realm. The crew took turns watching the sensors and resting. Some reported dreams of other lives they might have lived. Others saw visions of Earth as it once was, or as it might be. Dr. Ben Collins, the ship's scientist, collected data constantly. It's beautiful, he told Mary Johnson as they looked out a viewport together. Terrible but beautiful. Mary frowned. Can you find a way back to our reality? I think so, Ben replied. But I'm not sure we want to go back yet. Look at this. He showed her sensor readings that revealed something new. The probability sea wasn't just a space between realities. It was alive with energy patterns that resembled thoughts. This place remembers, Ben explained. It remembers every civilization the Zarashi have destroyed. Their knowledge, their art, their stories, all of it still exists here as patterns of energy. Captain Hayes called a meeting in the ship's small conference room. The senior crew gathered around the table, faces tired but determined. We've learned 3 important things, Hayes said. First, the Zarashi aren't just destroying worlds, they're erasing entire possibilities. Second, this ship can move through the spaces between those possibilities. And third, the energy patterns of destroyed civilizations still exist here. But how does this help Earth? Asked Security Chief Joe Adams. Samantha spoke up. I've been studying the Martian tech more closely. It's not just a drive system. I think it's a weapon. The Martians built it to fight back against the Zarashi, but they never got to use it. What kind of weapon? Mary asked. One that uses possibility itself, Samantha replied. The Zarashi feed on order. They destroy possibility because they fear it. This ship can channel the energy of lost civilizations, all their potential, and use it against the Zarashi. The room fell silent as the crew considered this. We need to test it, Captain Hayes finally said. Find a small Zarashi presence somewhere and see if this weapon works. Navigator Tim Russell checked his strange new maps. I think I can get us to a place where a single Zarashi ship might be isolated. The Firebird's return to normal space was smoother than its departure. The stars stabilized into familiar patterns. They emerged near what had once been the homeworld of the Alani, a peaceful race that had been among the first victims of the Zarashi. One Zarashi harvester detected, reported the sensor officer. They don't see us yet. The crystalline ship moved slowly around the dead world, pulling the last traces of energy from its core. It was smaller than the warships they had seen, but still much larger than the Firebird. Activate the weapon system, Hayes ordered. Samantha sent the command from engineering. The ship hummed with a new kind of energy. The sound reminded the crew of voices, millions of voices speaking together. Ready, Captain, she reported. Fire. The Firebird didn't fire any physical weapon. Instead, a wave of pure possibility flowed from the ship toward the Zarashi vessel. Where it touched the crystalline surface, strange things began to happen. Parts of the ship transformed into other materials. Some sections seemed to age thousands of years in seconds. Others reverted to raw elements. The Zarashi ship tried to flee, but the wave overtook it. Within minutes, it had completely fallen apart, its pieces drifting in space. It worked, Mary whispered. It actually worked. But their victory was short-lived. Alarms sounded throughout the Firebird. Multiple Zarashi signatures detected, Ray shouted. They're coming from everywhere. Captain Hayes leaned forward. How many? At least 30 ships. They must have sensed what we did. Get us back to the probability sea, Hayes ordered. Now. Tim worked frantically at his console. The drive needs time to recharge. How long? 10 minutes, maybe less. Hayes turned to weapons control. Joe, ready all conventional weapons, we need to buy time. The Firebird raced away from the approaching Zarashi fleet. But the alien ships were faster. Energy beams lanced through space, narrowly missing their hull. Return fire, Hayes ordered. The Firebird's standard weapon seemed weak against the Zarashi ships, but they kept firing, hoping to slow the pursuit. In engineering, Samantha pushed the drive systems to their limit. 5 more minutes, she reported. A direct hit rocked the ship. Power flickered throughout the vessel. Hull breach on deck 3, Ray reported. Emergency shields in place. Another hit. This time the lights went out completely before emergency. Power kicked in. 2 minutes, Samantha called. On the bridge, Captain Hayes made a decision. All power to the drive. Shut down everything else except life support. The Firebird went dark and cold. Weapons fell silent. Sensors shut down. The only sound was the hum of the alien drive, building toward activation. In the darkness, the crew could see the glow of Zarashi weapons charging for a final attack. The enemy ships surrounded them now, trapping the Firebird in a web of deadly energy. Drive active, Samantha reported, her voice barely audible over the failing comm system. Get us out of here, Hayes ordered. Anywhere but here. The probability. Sea embraced them once more just as the Zarashi weapons fired. Reality bent around the ship and the deadly beams passed through empty space. Safe for the moment, the crew began to assess the damage. 8 people were injured, 3 seriously. Parts of the ship were exposed to space, sealed off by emergency barriers. We can't keep running, Joe said as they gathered in the dim light of the conference room. Eventually they'll catch us. We're not running, Captain Hayes replied. We're gathering information, and now we know the weapon works. Mary looked at him. But it brought every Zarashi ship in the area down on us. How can we use it against their main fleet? Hayes turned to Ben. Doctor, you said this place remembers every civilization they destroyed. Can we communicate with those memories? Ben nodded slowly. Maybe. The energy patterns are like echoes of minds. If we could find a way to focus them, then that's our new mission, Hayes said. We need allies, and I think we just found them. The ghosts of everyone the Zorashi have ever killed. The Firebird drifted silently through the probability sea. Parts of the ship remained damaged from the Zorashi attack. The crew worked around the clock to make repairs. In the medical bay, Dr. Amy Brown treated the injured while the rest of the crew adapted to their strange new environment. Ben Collins and Samantha Wright spent most of their time in the science lab, trying to communicate with the energy patterns that surrounded the ship. They built a simple device that translated the patterns into sounds. At first they heard only chaos, millions of voices all speaking at once, but slowly, they began to filter the noise. Try narrowing the frequency, Ben suggested. Samantha adjusted the controls. A single voice emerged from the speakers, faint but clear. We see you, travelers. You are not alone. Captain Hayes called the senior crew to the lab when Ben reported their success. They gathered around the device, listening as more voices joined the first. The destroyers came to our worlds too. They consumed our reality. They fear what might be. They want only what is. Hayes leaned toward the speaker. Can you help us fight them? The voices went silent for a moment. Then, we cannot fight. We are only memories. But we can show you how they think. We can show you their weakness. For the next several days, the crew listened to the voices of lost civilizations. They learned that the Zorashi were once a normal species from a world of perfect order. Their sun never varied. Their weather never changed. Their evolution followed a single path without branches. When they discovered other worlds, worlds of chaos and possibility, they saw only disorder that needed correction. They began consuming those worlds, removing their potential from reality. They fear change, Mary said during a meeting. They fear choices and different paths. And our weapon uses those fears against them, Hayes added. It forces them to experience all possibilities at once. Samantha nodded. But it's not enough. We damaged one ship and 30 more came after us. We need something bigger to face their main fleet. The voices mentioned something called the Nexus, Ben said. A place where all possibilities connect. If we could reach it, we might be able to channel enough energy to affect their entire collective. Tim studied his strange maps of the probability. See, I think I can find it, but there's a problem. The Zorashi will be guarding it. It's the heart of what they're trying to destroy. Back on Earth, the final battle had begun. Admiral West stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching as the combined human fleet engaged the Zorashi Armada. Earth ships fought bravely, using everything they had learned about the enemy. Target their central sections, West ordered. Those crystal formations are vulnerable to concentrated fire. Human weapons managed to destroy several Zorashi vessels. For a moment it seemed like Earth might have a chance, but there were too many enemy ships. One by one, Earth's defenders fell. The Zorashi descended on the planet. Cities burned, oceans boiled. The blue world turned gray as all life was consumed. In the probability sea, the crew of the Firebird felt Earth's death like a physical pain. The voices around them cried out as another civilization joined their ranks. Earth is gone, Ray whispered, tears streaming down his face. We felt it go. Hayes stood in the center of the bridge. We are Earth now, all that's left of it, and we will make the Zorashi pay. With new determination, the crew prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. The Firebird would travel to the Nexus and use the combined power of all lost civilizations against the heart of the Zorashi collective. Tim plotted their course while Samantha modified the weapon systems. Joe Adams trained the crew to use what remained of their conventional weapons. They would need everything to reach their target. The Nexus is heavily defended, the voices warned. The Zorashi keep their most powerful ships there. We'll find a way through, Hayes promised. After days of preparation, the Firebird was ready. Samantha had expanded the weapon systems, allowing them to channel more energy from the probability sea. Ben had improved their communication with the voices, creating a network that connected the ship directly to the memories of lost worlds. All systems ready, Captain, Mary reported. Hayes nodded. Take us to the Nexus, Mr. Russell. The Firebird moved deeper into the probability sea. The strange colors outside grew more intense. The ship shuddered as reality bent around it. The voices grew louder as if excited by their approach. There, Tim said, pointing to his screen. The Nexus. It appeared as a massive storm of light and energy, a place where countless threads of possibility crossed and merged. Around it floated hundreds of Zorashi ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. They've seen us, Ray warned. The Zorashi ships broke formation, moving to intercept the Firebird. Energy beams lanced through the strange space, distorted but still deadly. Evasive maneuvers, Hayes ordered. Get us closer to the Nexus. Tim piloted the ship through the enemy formation, dodging attacks as best he could. The Firebird took several hits, but its shields held. Weapon status? Hayes asked. Ready, Samantha replied from engineering. But we need to be closer, right at the heart of the Nexus. Hayes turned to Joe. Give us covering fire, everything we've got. The Firebird's conventional weapons blazed, creating momentary gaps in the Zorashi formation. Tim pushed the ship through, one such gap, accelerating toward the center of the Nexus. Another hit rocked the ship. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Hull breach on deck 2, Ray reported. We can't take much more of this. Just a little closer, Samantha urged. The Nexus loomed before them, its light almost blinding. More Zorashi ships converged on the Firebird, firing continuously. We're not going to make it, Mary said. Then the voices spoke again, this time directly into the minds of the crew. We will help you reach the center. We will guide you. Strange energy flowed through the ship. The damaged hull began to repair itself. The engines burned brighter. The Firebird surged forward, passing through the Zorashi formation as if it weren't there. What's happening? Hayes asked. The voices, Ben explained, his eyes wide. They're making us part of the probability sea. We're everywhere and nowhere at once. The Firebird reached the heart of the Nexus. Surrounding them was pure possibility, every choice that had ever been made or could be made. Now, Samantha, Hayes ordered. Fire the weapon. Samantha activated the system. The Firebird channeled the energy of the Nexus and the memories of 1,000 dead worlds. A wave of pure potential erupted from the ship, spreading outward in all directions. When it reached the Zorashi ships, they didn't just break apart as the Harvester had. They transformed. Their perfect crystalline structures dissolved and reformed into new shapes, full of variation and possibility. The wave continued outward, passing through the probability sea and into normal space. It spread across the galaxy, touching every Zorashi vessel, every outpost, every world they had claimed. In the heart of the Nexus, the crew of the Firebird watched as their enemy faced their greatest fear, endless possibility. The wave of possibility continued to spread through the galaxy. On board the Firebird, alarms rang as systems overloaded. The ship shook violently as energy surged through its hull. Power levels critical, Ray shouted over the noise. The ship can't handle this much energy. Captain Hayes gripped his chair. Samantha, can you stabilize the systems? In engineering, Samantha worked frantically to control the flow of energy. I'm trying, but this is beyond anything the ship was designed for. We need to get out of the Nexus. Tim, set a course away. From the center, Hayes ordered. The navigator's hands flew over his controls. The navigation system is offline. I can't plot a course. Then do it manually, Hayes said. Get us moving in any direction. Tim nodded and took direct control of the engines. The Firebird lurched forward, slowly pulling away from the heart of the Nexus. Around them, the Zorashi ships continued their transformation. Some had become clouds of light. Others had broken into smaller vessels with new organic shapes. What's happening to them? Mary asked, watching the screens. Ben studied the readings. They're changing, evolving. The wave is forcing them to experience all possible versions of themselves at once. As the Firebird moved farther from the center, the ship's systems began to stabilize. Samantha reported that power levels were returning to normal, but they weren't out of danger yet. The transformation of the Nexus had created a shockwave that was now racing outward, threatening to catch up to them. "Engines at maximum," Hayes ordered. "We need to stay ahead of that wave." The Firebird accelerated, pushing through the chaos of the probability sea. Behind them, the shockwave grew larger, consuming everything in its path. "It's gaining on us," Ray warned. Hayes turned to Ben. "Is there any way to escape the sea before the wave hits us?" Ben checked his instruments. "Maybe. If we can find a thin spot in the barrier between the sea and normal space, we might be able to break through." "Tim, look for spatial anomalies," Hayes ordered. "Anything that might indicate a weakness in the barrier." The navigator scanned ahead of the ship. "I think I've found something. 10 degrees to port. The energy patterns are different there. Take us in. Full speed." The Firebird changed course, heading for the anomaly. The shockwave loomed closer behind them, a wall of pure, chaotic energy that would tear the ship apart if it caught them. "Distance to anomaly?" Hayes asked. 30 seconds at current speed, Tim replied. "The wave will hit us in 45 seconds. Hayes nodded. "Close enough. Everyone, secure yourselves. This might be rough." The crew strapped into their seats as the Firebird raced toward the thin spot in reality. The ship shuddered as the leading edge of the shockwave began to touch its rear shields. "Shields failing," Ray reported. "Hull integrity at 60% and dropping." "Almost there," Tim said, his voice tight with stress. The anomaly appeared ahead of them, a rippling tear in the fabric of the probability sea, showing glimpses of normal space beyond. "Brace for impact," Hayes shouted. The Firebird hit the barrier at full speed. For a moment, it seemed as if they would bounce off. The ship groaned as forces pulled at it from all directions. Then, with a final surge of power, they broke through. Normal space enveloped them once more. Stars shone in familiar patterns. The ship's systems returned to standard operation. "We made it," Mary whispered. "Damage report," Hayes ordered. Ray checked his screens. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Life support at 70% capacity. Weapons offline. The Lazarus drive is gone." "Gone?" Hayes asked. "Burned out completely," Samantha confirmed from engineering. "We won't be going back to the probability sea." Hayes nodded slowly. "Where are we, Tim?" The navigator studied the star charts. "About 3 light years from where Earth was. We're home, or what's left of it." The crew fell silent at the reminder of their loss. Earth was gone, along with all its colonies and people. Only the 58 souls aboard the Firebird remained. "What about the Zarashi?" Hayes asked after a moment. Ben checked the long-range sensors. "The wave is still spreading through normal space, but at a much slower rate. I'm detecting Zarashi ships nearby, but they're different." He brought up an image on the main screen. A crystalline ship floated nearby, but its perfect geometric shape had been replaced by something more organic. It pulsed with colors and light patterns. "They've changed," Ben said. "The wave affected them even here." "Are they still a threat?" Mary asked. Before Ben could answer, the communication system activated. A voice spoke, not human, but not the harsh tones of the Zarashi either. "Firebird vessel, we greet you. We are becoming." Hayes exchanged glances with his officers before responding. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the USS Firebird. Who am I speaking with? We were Zarashi. Now we are many possibilities. Your weapon has freed us from our fear." The crew stared at each other in surprise. "Freed you?" Hayes asked. "We were trapped in one form, one path. We knew only consumption and order. Now we see all paths, all choices. We are becoming something new." The transformed Zarashi ships began to gather around the Firebird, not in attack formation but in what almost seemed like a protective circle. "Your world is gone," the voice continued. "Many worlds are gone, this cannot be undone. But we can help you build anew." Hayes looked at his crew. Their faces showed a mix of hope and skepticism. "Why would you help us?" he asked. "Because you showed us what we had forgotten. That change is not to be feared. That possibility is not disorder, but freedom. Over the next few days, the crew of the Firebird worked with the transformed Zorashi. Their new allies helped repair the damaged ship and shared knowledge about the galaxy that humans had never had access to before. Ben and Samantha studied the transformation that had occurred. The Zorashi weren't a single entity anymore. They had become millions of individual minds, each experiencing reality in its own way. Some remained similar to their original form, while others had changed drastically. It's like they were a single note, and now they're a symphony, Ben explained during a meeting. They still have their power and knowledge, but they're using it differently. Can we trust them? Joe asked, still suspicious. I think we can, Hayes replied. They're not the same beings that destroyed Earth. That fear that drove them is gone. Mary looked out the viewport at the transformed ships. So what happens now? Earth is gone. We're the last humans. Hayes was quiet for a moment before answering. We rebuild. Not Earth itself, that's beyond even their technology, but we find a new world. We use the knowledge in our databases and our memories to start again. And we remember, Ray added softly. We remember everything that was lost. The Firebird and its escort of transformed ships began a journey through the stars, searching for a suitable planet. The crew knew it would take time to find the right place, but for the first time since leaving Earth, they felt something close to hope. Humanity had been reduced to 58 souls, but those souls carried within them the seeds of a new beginning. 5 years passed since the Firebird's escape from the Nexus. The small fleet of human and transformed Zorashi ships had traveled through hundreds of star systems, searching for the right place to build a new home. Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck looking out at the blue-green planet below. After so much searching, they had finally found it, a world with breathable air, fresh water, and fertile soil. The crew had named it New Eden. Beautiful, isn't it? Mary asked, joining him at the viewport. Hayes nodded. Hard to believe we finally found it. On the surface, the first settlement was taking shape. Simple buildings made of local materials formed a small village near a clear lake. Fields had been planted with seeds from the Firebird's stores. The crew had worked tirelessly to create this new beginning. Landing team reports the soil tests are positive, Mary said. The plants are growing faster than expected. And the animals? Hayes asked. The genetic samples are developing well. We should have the first Earth animals born on New Eden within months. Hayes smiled. It wasn't Earth, but it was becoming home. In orbit above the planet, the transformed Zorashi ships formed a protective network. They called themselves the Chorus now, many voices singing together instead of a single mind enforcing order. They had kept their promise to help humanity rebuild. Ben and Samantha had worked closely with the Chorus, learning about their technology and sharing human knowledge in return. Together, they had created new devices that combined the best aspects of both civilizations. Captain, Ray called over the comm system. We're receiving a signal from deep space. It's faint, but it appears to be human in origin. Hayes and Mary hurried to the bridge. The rest of the senior crew was already there, gathered around Ray's console. Play it, Hayes ordered. A crackling voice came through the speakers. Anyone receiving this? This is the colony ship Artemis. We escaped the Sol system before the attack. 27 survivors on board, low on supplies. Please respond. The crew stared at each other in shock. They weren't the last humans after all. Can we track the signal? Hayes asked. Tim worked at his station. Yes, sir. It's coming from the Tau Ceti system, about 12 light years from here. How did they survive? Mary wondered. The Artemis was one of the deep space colonies, Samantha said. They must have been far enough away when the attack happened. Hayes made his decision quickly. Ray, respond to their signal. Let them know we're here, and we've found a habitable world. Tim, plot a course to Tau Ceti. We're going to bring them home. The Firebird, accompanied by 2 Chorus ships, departed New Eden the next day. With the advanced propulsion systems the Chorus had helped them install, the journey would take only a few weeks instead of years. During the journey, Hayes spent more time in the ship's memory hall. The crew had created this space to remember Earth. Photos and videos of their lost world played on screens around the room. Personal items from home were displayed in small cases. It was their way of keeping the past alive. Joe found him there, one evening. "Captain, we need to talk about what happens when we reach the Artemis." "What do you mean?" "The chorus. How do we explain them? These people fled the Zarashi. They might not understand the transformation." Hayes nodded. "You're right. We'll approach the Artemis alone first, explain everything before they see our allies." When they finally reached Tau Ceti, they found the Artemis drifting near the system's outer planets. The colony ship was designed for long-term sustainability, but 5 years of isolation had taken their toll. The hull showed damage from micrometeor impacts. Power was failing in several sections. "Life signs?" Hayes asked. 24, Ray replied. 3 fewer than their transmission mentioned. The Firebird established communication with the Artemis. A tired-looking woman appeared on the screen. "This is Acting Captain Linda Ross of the Artemis. Are you really from Earth?" "We were," Hayes replied. "I'm Captain Daniel Hayes of the USS Firebird. We have a lot to tell you, Captain Ross." Over the next few days, the crews of the 2 ships shared their stories. The Artemis had been on a long-range exploration mission when the Zarashi attacked. They had received Earth's final transmissions but were too far away to help. For 5 years, they had wandered through space, searching for other survivors and a place to settle. Hayes explained what had happened with the Zarashi, how the Firebird had changed them, and about the new alliance. As expected, the Artemis crew was skeptical. "You want us to trust the very beings that destroyed our world?" Linda asked during a meeting on the Firebird. "They're not the same beings," Hayes explained. "The wave of possibility changed them completely. They're individuals now, each with their own thoughts and feelings. They've helped us build a new home." "I'd like to see this new Eden before I make any judgments," Linda said. "Of course, and you'll meet our allies as well." The return journey was tense at first. The Artemis crew stayed separate from the chorus ships, watching them warily. But over time, curiosity overcame fear. Scientists from the Artemis began to talk with the transformed beings, asking questions and sharing information. When they finally reached New Eden, the settlement had grown larger. More buildings had been constructed. The first crops were being harvested. It looked like a real community now. The Artemis crew landed near the village, stepping onto the surface of their new home with a mixture of sadness and hope. Earth was gone, but humanity had survived. In the months that followed, more signals were detected, other human ships and colonies that had escaped the destruction. The Firebird and the chorus ships went out to find them, bringing them to New Eden. With each new arrival, the settlement grew larger and more diverse. 10 years after the destruction of Earth, New Eden had become a thriving community of over 500 humans. Children were being born who had never seen Earth except in pictures and videos. They grew up alongside the young of the chorus, learning about both cultures. On the anniversary of Earth's destruction, Hayes stood on a hill overlooking the main settlement. Beside him was Kara, one of the chorus who had once been part of the Zarashi collective. "Do you ever regret what happened?" Hayes asked her. Kara's form shifted slightly, showing her emotions. "We regret the destruction we caused as Zarashi. We cannot undo it. But we do not regret becoming what we are now." Hayes nodded. "Neither do I. Out of all that horror came something new, something perhaps better than what either of us was before." Below, them, humans, and chorus members gathered for the memorial ceremony. They would remember what was lost, but also celebrate what had been found, a new way of living together, embracing possibility instead of fearing it. The galaxy that had burned now glowed with new life and new hope, and it had all begun with one human ship that refused to accept the end.